Ladies and gentlemen, could I welcome you to the annual meeting? We did have some concerns that there wouldn't be a quorum of people, and clearly we've exceeded it. I don't know what the quorum is, but we must have exceeded it by a long way. I welcome you most heartily to this annual meeting. If I could introduce myself, I'm Rod Smith, the newly appointed president of the association. It's 50 years almost to the day that I started reading engineering here at Oxford. I spent some time in this lecture theatre, not as much time as maybe I should have done, and it's changed a lot in the 50 years that since I was here. Many of you of that vintage will recognise this sort of book. Does it ring a bell with people? The lab notebooks and the experiments marked up at the back. I did do most of the experiments that I was supposed to do and wrote them up very carefully, and a friend of mine from another college used to copy my reports and usually got more marks for them than I did, which was really irritating. But in his subsequent career, he became head of a large borough in London, a chief executive, so I think his cribbing of my reports was probably good training for the work he did subsequently in public service. So look, that was a little bit of nostalgia. I didn't bring my slide rule along, I should have done. I still have it, never use it now of course, but it was slide rules in those days. So this is a very nostalgic time for me, and to welcome you all to this meeting. We have a certain amount of formal agenda to attend to, and it's very important that I follow an agenda. Has anybody got one? Because I haven't got one. That's not the agenda for the meeting. It's the agenda for the annual meeting. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you, sir. I'm going to take it in a rather rapid way, some of it. We had an annual meeting last year. There is a report of that meeting. If anybody has any objections that is not an accurate and complete record, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we'll accept it as a record by acclamation. Has anybody got any objections to the minutes of the last meeting? Can we approve the minutes of the last meeting as an accurate record? I don't see any dissension. I see lots of nods. Thank you very much for that. The traditional head of department's report is going to be a separate agenda item outside this meeting later this afternoon. And we're looking forward to that, and it will give you an update in events in the department. Can I move to first of all, the Secretary's report? Where is our secretary? Is he here? What are you going to report to at the moment? Paul.
I'm the secretary. Very quickly, two things. One is a kind of formal thing that a few years ago we changed the constitution of the Alumni Society for Engineers to include retiring staff as well as former students. And I just wanted to report that we now have a process within the department for doing that. The other thing I just want to say is thanks to Eva Williams, because Eva, the department's alumni officer, is the person that provides the engine that makes all these things happen. So thanks to Eva. That's all I've got.
Thank you very much. We have a new treasurer. I'm going to ask David to present the accounts in a moment and explain the circumstances of his appointment to this post. But David's taken over. Could you present your report now, David? I hope that will come up on the slide here, and you can change it as you wish. Yes, yeah. Can you hear me all right? You're probably hearing me without the microphone, actually. It's an easy room to fill this. But it's also an easy room to sleep in at the back. I've noticed one or two people who are lapsing into my habits of old.
Right, can everybody hear me all right? Good, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Rod. As you will see, my name's David Jeffcoat. Like Rod, I was in this room a number of times, but quite a few years ago now, but it's good to be back. I'm down there as acting treasurer. Unfortunately, my predecessor, Clark Brundin, was taken ill during the year, so had to step down. And I replaced him effectively from the beginning of this calendar year in January. So I'm going to spend hopefully just a couple of minutes just sharing the accounts with you. Those who have their papers in front of them will see the accounts in that pack. But I've just broken them down into 2 slides to make things rather clearer. I'll effectively just take these 2 pages as read and just highlight a couple of points. But if you do have any questions, please do interrupt and ask them as you wish. You'll see here that our expenditure during the year, this column here, a very modest £1,500. The 2 main items there, we award 3 prizes to existing students during the year for good research, and the main prize winner, Sam, is it Atias? Sam? Atias, yeah. Atias, I'm sorry, Sam Atias, you'll be hearing from later in the afternoon. He won the first prize, and then there were 2 runner-up prizes of £500 awarded. The other item on there, the £500 ex gratia payment. I mentioned earlier the forced retirement of Clark Brundin. He's been a very long-standing member of the committee, has been treasurer for about 12 years, I believe, and had done great service for the society over the period. And in recognition of that, we decided to award him an ex gratia payment of £500. No income in the year, as you can see on the left-hand side. And it really was a year of transition, I suppose, and we'll be looking going forward at a number of initiatives which we hope will change that picture. Any questions? So then, if we look at the assets, the funds that we had in place, effectively the way that this works is this number here is the balance that we had in the bank at the end of the previous year, so July 2016. 2016. During the year, we had the expenditure just over £1,500 that I referred to earlier, leaving us a total balance of £15,600 and change. Most of that was in a current account at Lloyd's, and we had a small balance in a PayPal account, which has been transferred now into the Lloyd's account, giving that total of £15,600. Quite a big figure in a current account, and one of the things that we've talked about in a committee meeting just before this event was effectively putting that money on deposit to pick up more interest until we decide just how those funds are going to be used going forward. That's it. Yes, a question.
Sorry to ask a question on a very concise presentation. The balance that you're considering transferring to an interest paying account,
yes,
you're only going to get probably 0.5% or 1%, which is £80, maybe £100 a year. Is it worth looking at something which is sort of engineering and creative and might provide some income? I'm thinking, I don't know, solar panels or something, on the engineering lot that would then generate some income as well as some electricity.
It's an interesting question, not necessarily a question for the treasurer.
No.
We're looking at options, in fact, which will give us up to 1.5%, so it is a bit more than you thought. I think I'd really like to defer your question or answering your question, because, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to talk about some thoughts for initiatives going forward, which will hopefully achieve the objectives of the society, which are to support alumni and also the engineering faculty here, the engineering department, and ensure that the funds that we have in place to award prizes and so on are at the very least sustained. So I think as it stands, the objectives of the society would be met rather more through what you hear about a bit later on. Anything else? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
David mentioned the retirement of Clark Brundin, so I'd like formally to add my thanks to the work that Clark has done over many years. First of all, starting the Old Members Alumni Association of the department, and then being our treasurer and really being very careful about being treasurer over a large number of years, presenting his reports on time and very concise and accurate. So I'd like to record my thanks and the thanks of the meeting to Clark for his work over the years, and wishing him very well. His health is not very good at the moment. I'd also like to thank my predecessor, Martin Hurst, who was our president for a number of years, during which a transition was made, linking our society much more closely with the department. And it's really that topic that I'd just like to spend a few minutes talking to you about now. I mean, what is the reason for having an alumni association? There is some merit in a social function of brotherhood and sisterhood of old members sharing experiences of their time in the department. They're naturally curious about how the department is developing, and it's developing extremely strongly and very well, and you're going to hear more about that from the head of department shortly. There is some merit in us helping current students in the department, partly with our experience, partly by organising things like placements in companies that we are associated with, which is a very positive way. We've mentioned the prize that we've awarded for the project prize in the department, which brings us to the attention of students who are leaving the department and adds to the continuity of our activities. Now, you will notice the Treasurer said we've got some assets in the bank, and if we continue supporting the student prize year by year, which we intend to, our assets will in 17 years dwindle to zero, and our support will then not have any financial. So we do need some sources of funding to continue, and you are representing those sources of funds, and it may be through activities that we run that we pay, you pay a fee to join because you want to and it's enjoyable and so on. We don't have a membership fee, and I don't think there's a proposal to start a membership fee. But we do need to think of ways in which we can continue to support the department and support our own interest in the department in the future, to raise a bit of money. Now, if you look on your agenda, I mean, it's actually 6. I missed a little bit out about membership of the committee. But let me just come back to that in a moment. But let me talk about these future activities of the department and the way in which we might raise money. We really need your advice about the sort of things you would like us to do, because there's no point in doing them if there's no interest in pursuing them. So there are a list of suggestions, which again, unfortunately, I haven't got in front of me and I can't remember off the top of my head. There is a slide with those listed on, is it? Good man. Thank you, Dave. It's a good job I've got some support here, isn't it? I mean, this is just like giving a lecture to the undergraduates and forgetting what you're going to say, but never mind. The audience are more alert than the undergraduates because you're all still awake and not reading the newspaper. So what we need to do is really engage with you in some sort of opinion gathering exercise, and we're going to circulate a questionnaire by email to people who are attending this meeting to give a chance for you to express your views and any opinions and any assistance you've got, or even more important, to volunteer to do certain things, because a lot of these ideas require champions to take them forward and enthusiasts to carry them forward. So here are just some ideas about running an additional event. I mean, for want of a better word, somebody suggested it would be a sort of engineering alumni Gordy event, possibly held here in Oxford, with some sort of technical meeting in late afternoon, early evening, followed by a splendid dinner in a college hall, which would really be a networking event. Lots of different departments in the university have similar events, and they have pretty glittering speakers coming to address those annual events, real national, international leaders in their professions. The lawyers are particularly good at it. And since we usually pay a lot in our lives to support their lifestyle, we should learn in a similar way. So that is one idea, a mixture of a technical event with a really key speaker and a social networking event, which is a very, very nice occasion. Not necessarily in Oxford, could be in London, could be. There are other cities in the country apparently. One in Manchester, where I come from, but Oxford and London might be the early suggestion. So your thoughts on that? I mean, just a quick show of hands. Would anybody be interested in such an event? Well, that's quite an encouraging immediate response, just to sound people out. We haven't got that much time, so I'll have to breeze through very quickly. Very good idea that was discussed is publishing something we call a yearbook, but perhaps a yearbook is not quite the right name. A really nice publication full of interesting articles, the work of past members of the department, the work of current members of the department, ideas, some historical anecdotes about the department as it was, and so on. We were shown an example by one of our members, Vaughan, who's sitting in front of me now, something he does for a naval historical society, and I must say I was really impressed by the presentation he got. A good idea, but it requires some enthusiasm, and it requires some input of articles and needs source of material to do it. But it could be very good, and it would be the sort of thing you wouldn't just read and throw away, but you'd keep a series of them on your shelves. The head of department reiterated one of the best things we can do to help the department is to develop the networking of internships for current members of the department. And of course that helps recruitment of the companies who are involved in those internships too, because the internment is a sort of look-see exercise on both sides of the fence. The companies can decide whether they want to employ this individual in the long term, and the student can decide whether his or her future will be best served in that company. So that's a very important aspect that we can help with. We can help in a rather vague sort of way with career support by offering advice, people who've been through it before and had experience and so on, largely through our website and through LinkedIn, and we could develop those ideas a little bit more strongly. We could use the website to advertise job vacancies. This might be of interest to companies who had vacancies that they wanted to fill, and they wanted engineers from a good stable to come and join them. We discussed ideas in which we could access department research. One of the ideas expressed was that people might appreciate the possibility of attending seminars in the department, which would have to be properly advertised in advance so people could make arrangements to come. Many of the papers published from department members during the year are the nature of reviews of certain areas of technology, which I'm sure would be of great interest to a lot of our members to further their technical knowledge, and a listing of those papers and a download possibility from the internet I think would be appreciated by people. So, I mean, if there are any immediate views that can be concisely expressed in the few minutes that we've got now, here's your chance to prove that you're awake. Sir?
On the subject, you've got 15 years to run before you run out of funds.
Yes.
How much are you expecting to raise when you get to it? What's your target figure?
You're racing ahead of me there, but hope that we get to a stage within a few years that we're balancing and we're not running into our reserves. So in about 3 or 4 years' time, we'll be looking to raise at least £2,000 a year. That sort of level of activity. And you know, one big, highly successful do, if I may use the term, a year, could raise quite a lot of money. I mean, a big social cum technical event could run at a good surplus, even if it was reasonably competitively priced. If we use college.
Sorry,
Okay.
you have another technical question. How many members have you got?
9,800 approximately. But I mean, some of these are follow the traditions of this lecture theatre and are sleeping members, and really only members in name, you see. So we're not really engaging them in any positive way. Their name's on a list. That's why I'm just overwhelmed at the number of people sitting in front of me now. I mean, in past years, we've had difficulty filling a quorum of 15, 20 people so we can have an annual meeting. It's fantastic that you're all here today. I can only assume it must be because of some attraction that's going to come later.
Eva promised biscuits.
So it really is great. And if we can translate that enthusiasm to strengthen our activities and make it a really meaningful long-term relationship with the department for the benefit of past members, for the benefit of the department, that's the overall objective. That's win-win for both parties. That's what we want to do. Any observations of the points that I've raised?
Excuse me.
Yes.
It just seems to me that maybe more actively pursuing donations with that should possibly be a bullet. You know, for instance, Stanford, Harvard, MIT, more aggressively.
Of course, we discussed this, and of course, there's always a tension here at Oxbridge between donations to colleges and loyalties to colleges, where there's a sort of natural tendency to gravitate to your memories of college, and somehow it's easier to give, and very few people give to departments. But it is something we need to encourage, and I think that the head of department will mention it in his comments later. Because there are ways of doing it, and particularly in the expansion phase that the department's now at, and new building possibilities and so on and so forth. He's very keen to pursue that. Now, it's been very successful, the department, raising funds from companies, big blue chip companies and so on, where there's been a long association with the department. Not been as successful with individuals. We tend to give to our colleges, generally speaking.
I did address this with Clark Brendan, and because he was my advisor, and he indicated the college was fund for funds, and really the engineering department needed funds more, much more so.
Well, believe me, as you know, ex-head of big engineering departments myself, I always worried that the money went to the wrong places. And departments as well as colleges need support, and they can do things with it. So it's a good point that you raise, but I think the head will take that up in some more detail. I've been told at the pain of death that I've got to really keep to time really well. So we've got 2 minutes to just round up. And the one thing I hadn't mentioned was the change in membership of the committee. The names are on the agenda that you've had circulated to you. For the first time for a long time, we now have a complete committee. But if any of you express an interest to join the committee, we can co-opt anybody.
Yeah, again, my secretary hat on, I'd just like to follow up on that. The formal situation is that we have a constitution, that's what the committee is, and as it happens, we have exactly the right number of nominees for places, so we shan't be having an election today. So David Jeffcoat, for instance, who took over as acting treasurer during the year, he is nominated to become the treasurer, and we know other nominations, so he will become treasurer, and then there are We have Sarah Jones, who's here somewhere, who's been doing a sterling service over 6 years. She's retiring. And then we have 3 members joining. Vaughan Michel, who's been mentioned already. Sai Lakshmi, who can't be here today.
I'm here.
He is there. Right, back there. And then there's Nigel Titley, who's here, who was another nominee, and he's also joining the committee. So thank you very much for putting yourself forward. Thank you. That deals with that.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you again for attending this meeting. It's really good. Thank you for approving the things that we've put before you. Sorry, it's a bit of a rush. I'm now going to hand over to the head of department and various items on the agenda he's going to cover next. So thanks very much for being with us so far. Thank you.